refocusing on corporate travel. Here is a thought-provoking panel discussion moderated by Gerald Lawless.
Well, good morning, everybody, and we're very excited here today to have some very, very special panelists discussing what I believe, and we all believe, is a vital part of the industry. We do know that in aviation travel and airline travel, that business passengers account for approximately 12% of total seats on commercial airlines. But we also understand that somewhere in the region of 75% gross profit is attributed to business travel for the airlines. So we do appreciate very much that airlines, business travel is very much the lifeblood of our industry, particularly from the hotel point of view and from all of the travel and tourism aspects. And today we have a very interesting panel. And I'd like to introduce each of them, and then I will ask each of our panelists to tell us about themselves and their organizations. And we start with the lovely Anita Minderata, my very, very special friend, who's a special advisor to the Secretary General of the UNWTO, and also has her own organization, Anita Minderata and Associates. So very welcome, Anita, and thank you so much for joining us early in the morning in London. So well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerald.
We have Mr. Adel Mardini, who I think really has a fascinating story to tell. And Mr. Mardini is the CEO and founder of JetX, and JetX looks after private flights, private jet flights. And yes, this will be really interesting to hear what's been occurring within your sector, Adel, for the last 9 months or so. And another good old friend is Ross Veach. Ross and I sit on the advisory board of the Ras Al Khaimah Tourism Development Authority, so we meet quite regularly. And Ross is the CEO and co-founder of WeGo. And I'm sure it'll be very interesting to hear what Ross has to tell us about the trends that he is experiencing for booking for travel and for tourism, and particularly not just in the corporate sector, but in the general travel sector. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. And I would like to start with yourself, Anita, if you could tell us about yourself and about your organization. Thank you very much.
Stunning. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. And thank you enormously for having me a part of the Gulf Travel Show. I'm very grateful, Gerald, but I do know that a good strategy is always saying yes, sir, whenever you make a request. So I'm delighted to be with you. I carry with me the regards from the Secretary General of the UNWTO, Zira Pololikashvili, who's actually in Brazil at the moment, but he knows that we are currently in the Middle East through this program and sending great thanks. It has been an intensely busy year. My focus is tourism and development and very much within the crisis space. And we have been working intensely in terms of trying to get cautious restart of the travel and tourism sector. This being a particularly important segment as it is where the confidence buildings come from, in addition to, as you say, Gerald, the yield and the volume and the momentum. So I'm very grateful to be a part of this, very grateful to have the UNWTO part of this conversation, and I look forward to our conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anita. And Ross, would you like to tell us about WeGo?
Sure, if I can figure out how to unmute myself. Yes. So WeGo is in the online travel game. We run a marketplace platform. There's about 1,000 different travel companies participating. So hotel OTAs, flight OTAs, hotel chains, as well as airlines directly. And it's for flights, hotels, activities, and tours. We operate a global platform, but we really focus on the MENA region, where we have roughly 10 million active users a month on the platform. And over a course of, well, if I look at our pre-COVID levels, we were doing about $1.5 billion a year in travel booking, so fairly significant volume. We focus mainly on the sort of the B2C market, and within that we actually see a fair bit of business travel. So when we've surveyed our users, about 50% of them are using us for booking work-related trips at some time or another. This is sort of what we characterize as the self-managed business travel, as opposed to sort of the corporate segment, or indeed the sort of the private jet segment that Adele's going to be talking about. But so when we slice and dice the numbers, we reckon maybe a third of our volume is business related. So happy to share a few more insights on that. And great to be part of the conversation. Thank you, Gerald, for the invitation, and good to be part of the Gulf Travel Show.
Thank you very much, Ross. Thank you. So Adele, your fascinating story, and we're really looking forward to hearing it as well. So please tell us.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon from Dubai. And clearly, we are running a big platform in the private aviation business, headquartered in Dubai, with the 33 terminals around the world. Our specialists in the private jet and the concierge service for our business traveler, even they are passenger or a crew, which like they are flying in the private jet. We do per year more than 120,000 flight private jet around the world via our terminal or via our the location that we are handling the flight. We keep expanding in our business, and we see there's a big opportunity for the business aviation to grow for the coming 3 to 5 years. And unfortunately, due to the pandemic and due to the damage that the commercial airlines and the airlines had during this pandemic, we see massive growth in the business aviation. And we believe strongly that the people who flying in private jet, they will continue flying private jet for the coming 3 to 5 years, due to the fact that the passenger value right now and put their health and safety as a priority. Before, most of the people who are flying a private jet, they are looking for private jet as like more luxury, but now is looking more necessary. So we are very optimistic about the coming 3 to 5 years in our industry, and we are pretty sure that the business aviation in general will make massive growth for the coming at least 3 years.
Thank you, Adele. So let's stay with you, Adele, for a little while, just to explore further exactly what this phenomenon is all about. And of course, you would have anticipated a certain amount of growth in your business. And if, for example, I'm a travel manager of a large corporation, how would I be persuaded to allow private jet travel as opposed to commercial travel for my executives? And at what level do you see the cutoff? How do you see that developing, and how do you see the affordability coming into play?
I believe for the first time we start seeing there is no availability on the private jet due to high demand in the market, and it was not planned and was not like before. So 70% of the customer who's flying in private jet, all of them coming from first class and business class for the time being. I see new names, I see new group coming. I see people the first time they heard about the private jet and how they can fly in private jet and how it's easy for them to fly private jet. McKinsey make a study about touch point. If you are flying in commercial airlines, you are exposed to 720 touch point, while if you are flying to private jet, you are exposed up to 30 touch point. So all this indication convince the people, the large corporate company, and the big group of the people to fly in a private jet. And everyone believe flying private jet is very expensive. We see people like sharing the airplane right now. We see a group of the people, friends, families, they want to go to holidays, they want to go back to their home. All of them, they are sharing the seat. And in the end, I will not say the same price, but maybe you will be a little bit more if you are flying in business or first class. But in the end, the advantage if you are flying in business aviation, business jet, is way much better compared if you are flying commercial airlines.
And do you see then that when the health and safety part eventually goes away because we have a vaccine or because the the virus eventually fizzles out, how do you see being able to protect this new business that you've got and being able to ensure that it doesn't leak back to the commercial airlines?
I had this discussion with like our customer here, passenger and traveler, and all of them assured me that they will keep flying in private jet because they realize that right now how important, how different to fly in a private jet. Again, it's different budget, but if they plan a trip 4 or 5 times in first class per year, now they will do a 2 or 3 trip in business aviation, and they will fly in private and more safe. So I don't see the people will come back to the commercial airlines. I will not say 100%, but I expect like more than 70% of the people, they will stay flying in the private aviation because they realize the difference. It's big difference. You're coming 15 minutes before departure, or in arrival, it took for you maybe 20 to 30 minutes to be out with the luggage. We have KPIs, 12 minutes the luggage to be on the car. So the passenger is his time or her time decision to leave the terminal. So 15 minutes, you will be exposed for only 2 persons who will handle all your stuff or the passport with the immigration, with the custom. This is massive and big change compared with the commercial airlines.
Indeed. I've had the honor of actually visiting your facility at Dubai World Central, and I must say, even the facility for crew is like a first-class lounge. It really is fabulous.
This is Dubai. You know, when you are in Dubai, you have to match the vision of Dubai, which like we've been selected the best terminal in the world for the past 2 years, and we will continue leading this industry.
Fantastic. And tell me, in size of the aircraft, what typically is it? 6-seater, 12-seater? What would
it's different. We have 6-seat, 12-seat, 18-seat, and 24-seat. Depends on the group. Okay. We had one group who flew to Beirut, 18 passenger, just like they were friends. They went back to their home for vacation. It's 18 passengers, so they charter aircraft 18-seat. So again, depends on the people who's flying. We can see right now a new business, which is mainly a group of the people. There is a new aircraft coming in the industry with 50-seat, all business class right now, which operate, I will not say scheduled flight, but they are planning for a tour in Dubai and Maldives and Seychelles during this pandemic. So they will spend a couple of days in Dubai, a couple of days in Maldives, and they will come back. This is kind of a tour traveler, which like they are gathering themselves, they're sharing the airplane, they're sharing the hotel, and in the end, trust me, they are not paying too much money.
Just 1 second, please, Adele. I think Ross would like to come in there.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Joe. Adele, fascinating. I was wondering if you could comment. So what percentage of your bookings do you find are coming in via the web or mobile, either on a confirmed booking basis or on a lead gen basis? Like, how do people find you, get in touch with you, book your services?
First of all, mainly social media and digital marketing. And for the past 2 months, I found more than 35 to 40% is coming from digital marketing and social media.
Huh, interesting. Do you have a mobile app you can use to book a plane once you onboard?
We don't have mobile app, no, because mainly we are focusing about the private terminal, and the private jet is a part of the service that we are doing for our customer. So we don't have mobile app for this one because we don't own airplane. We do concierge service for the airplane and for the passenger.
Right.
Thank you. I'm sure we'll be back to you shortly. But Anita, I think you have some visuals to show us as well, some slides, just 2 or 3. I think it would be very interesting to hear from you as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I can ask the presentation, please be loaded. But Adele, I want to comment on something you said, which was incredibly important. And you said that ultimately health and safety is now a priority. And that's quite special because as we know that COVID-19 has shifted not just the value of travel, but the values of travel. And you made a really good point about the fact that 720 touch points compared to 30. Importantly, COVID-19 has shifted how people's habits around travel are also going to be evolving. It's less flights, as you said, less exposure is desired, and there'll be less frequency, and people want to spend less time. So it's interesting to see how, I always say when people say we're going to go back to normal, there's no going back, and there's certainly no normal. All of this has recalibrated the world in which we live and by implication, the world in which we travel. So I thought that was really interesting how your segment is a direct reflection of how travelers are now looking how they choose to travel. And for those who have the opportunity to do it by private jet, fantastic. I'm just going to go through this very quickly and looking at it from the point of view of corporate travel, very much aviation centric. If I can also go to the next slide, please. This is just a dashboard that's been done by the UNWTO in terms of recovery, looking at all the primary indices. We're looking at, as of the end of August, so Northern Hemisphere, minus 70% down year to date, which is devastating. If you think that our sector was growing between 3 and 5% for the last 10 years and representing 1 in 10 jobs, all of this flipped to the WTTC very poignantly commenting on the fact that at the beginning, we were losing 1 million jobs a day. I thought this was interesting from the point of view, though, of even just the searching and the occupancy levels, how there's been a shift in terms of how people are staying, how they are traveling, the amount of short-term rentals, and interestingly, the bookings. If you look at the very bottom, the actual air reservations down 80%. October being down 91% compared to last year. If we quickly flip to the next slide though, this to me was most important in terms of air traffic and impacts us all. At the peak of the pandemic, there were 16,000 aircraft grounded around the world, those being commercial, regularly scheduled. Adele's flights were going. We had the repatriation flights, as well as moving the essential workers and medical equipment, but otherwise the world was grounded. IATA is very clear in saying we will not have the momentum of last year until 2023, 2024. And I thought this was important from the point of view of seeing how dramatically all of the work that was done in global connectivity from the skies came absolutely to a halt when it came to pandemic, especially at its peak. We still now have a creeping amount, but if we look at it going forward, it's only going to be around confidence building. And it goes back to what Adele was saying about ultimately trust is the new currency. If we look at the next slide, this is some work that was also done by ICAO. If you go to the next, perfect, thank you. In terms of, in terms of travel intent, and looking at it from the point of view, 2/3 of people that were interviewed between IATA and ICAO are coming down at saying there will be less travel, both leisure and business itself. So that propensity to reduce travel is going to be significant on the demand side. On the supply side, we are still incredibly fragile on what's there. So Adele, your link in the chain is absolutely vital in getting momentum up, getting people's travel confidence back up again, and getting the value chain around aviation up itself. So I just wanted to put that in terms of global context on what supply is available commercially, and especially for business people who interestingly are experiencing lower airfares at the moment in terms of the flights and the seats when you turn left when you get on the plane. But we're still in a very fragile position, particularly as we don't have the air access in terms of the routes. We don't have the quick testing yet at the airports, which seems to be the deal breaker for people getting on to make sure we know they're COVID-19 negative. We have vaccines coming out, but that still needs to be rolled out aggressively in the first half of next year. And vitally, in terms of travelers, regulation changes. The fear around the quickness of regulation change, whether it's lockdowns or quarantines, is a deterrent. And that's where at some point, Gerald, I'd love to get Adele's point of view on how the private jet segment actually is able to manage issues around regulations, lockdowns, and if there's any benefit there in terms of ease of access to destinations themselves. But that's it from my side from a presentation point of view. And I hand it back to our lovely moderator.
I'd just like to leave that up for a little while, if we may, while we ask Ross to tell us about how he sees the trends, how he sees things moving and what's going to happen in this particular area. Because I'd like to as well start to explore not just the aviation side, but also what's happening in the hospitality, accommodation, and the meetings, incentives, conferences, and exhibitions.
Sure. So that was a great overview. Thanks, Anita. So our, you know, if I was to show you sort of our sort of aviation booking numbers, they would look very similar to the global summary that you showed. So in March, you know, we basically over a period of 2 weeks, our revenue fell to about minus 98% of what it was year over year. So it basically came to an almost complete stop as, you know, the airlines in the Middle East parked their jets on the runway and the airport shut down and people basically stopped traveling. And it was like that all through Q2 and Q3. You know, we've seen some business begin to come back. Bookings out of the Middle East for us are at about 30% of where they were in 2019. So we're seeing about, you know, five points a month come back. I'm hopeful that by middle of next year, we're back to roughly where we were. So that's sort of our baseline scenario at the moment. That slide you've got up on the screen at the moment is interesting and actually gives me some hope. I think for leisure, as soon as we are past COVID, that we're either vaccinated or we figured out how to deal with the new normal, I think people are going to go back to their old trends, travel trends. I see no reason why we're in a fundamental break in people's behavior to travel to see the world. And the fact that the leisure numbers are so close to the business numbers gives me some confidence that perhaps the slowdown, you know, the step change reduction everybody seems to be forecasting for business travel might not eventuate either. I'm a little bit of a contrarian on that. I think as soon as it's safe, as soon as people have figured out how to move around safely for business, companies will have their staff back up in the air for all the reasons that they've always done it. I think some of the video conferencing that we've all got used to, I think will, you know, maybe chip away at it, but I suspect it's going to be incremental rather than a substitute in a lot of cases. I think maybe it's going to differ a little bit depending on which part of the world you do your business. I think in, you know, most of Asia, most of the Middle East, we're actually turning up as a show of respect, and people, you know, want to deal face to face. I think that's going to become the norm as soon as it's possible. I think maybe in the West, you know, there will be some substitution. That's possible. But I think sometime towards the end of next year, I think business travel will be somewhere back to where it was. And I think the catalyst will be the things that you talked about, Anita. So, you know, antigen rapid testing before you step foot in an airport or before you check in. I think that's going to be the new normal probably before the end of this year. You know, it already is in quite a few airports and airlines. And I think that's also going to be the way that the MICE industry gets restarted. You know, in Singapore, where I am today, you know, conferences are already beginning to restart, and it's, you know, before you go to collect your badge, you go over to the side, you get your rapid antigen test done, you give them the mobile number. 10 minutes later, you get your result back, and if you're negative, okay, you can have your badge, and in you go. So I think that's going to be adopted for the MICE industry. You know, and similarly, it'll get adopted by schools, it'll get adopted by workplaces. You know, I suspect, you know, early next year we'll be testing all the staff, you know, every day, every other day before they come in. So I think until we're all vaccinated, you know, that will be the new normal.
Could I just come in there, Ross? Because
sure.
I really agree very strongly with you. I think that as well as getting a very strong resurgence of travel, we could look forward also to the expression of pent-up demand in travel. And people, you know, as we go through next year, even as we go through the end of this year, there is pent-up demand for travel. We have heard recently about the air corridor that's now been agreed between the UK and the United Arab Emirates. Extremely significant, because this is going to allow people to come to the UAE on holiday for Christmas, and they can go home without the fear of being put into quarantine. And I think this will go more and more and will become a major issue. Sorry, Anita, I'll be with you in a second, but one one other area which I think is really good as well, particularly for Dubai and the UAE, is that in October of 2021, we will finally be having Expo. And I personally believe that Expo will be very much a celebration of humanity coming back to actually enjoy traveling again in safety, in comfort, having the human race having defeated the pandemic. So we can certainly be confident looking forward, and hopefully that we do get this rapid result testing regime where it becomes a really reliable test and gives an accurate result, and then it just becomes part of the check-in procedure, just like security has become part of the procedure for checking in for flights. Sorry, Anita, I didn't let you come in there.
No, not at all. I think it's interesting, Gerald, your comment about Expo, that the core proposition of Expo is actually strengthened because it's been shifted by the year. But I think I also want to link back to the issue of leisure. What I found fascinating, and this struck me at the beginning of the pandemic, the motivation for leisure is changing. Because all of us have been grounded for, it'll be effectively a year. We've all missed birthdays. We've all missed milestone occasions. We've all missed funerals. We've all missed something significant. So my argument is that heart is going to be the motivation before holiday. People finally being able to see each other, having put off milestones and elements of being able to connect with people that they've missed because of either global separation, lockdowns, whatever. So I think what I find fascinating is that the definition of leisure has changed because of COVID-19. The definition of sustainability has changed. Now we understand it's economic, social, cultural, and environmental. So I think what's really important, and it goes to exactly what Ross, you were saying, that the motivation for business in Asia, as we saw with 2008, 2009, is that respect for actually traveling the distance to actually rebuild business, whether it's, again, Asia or Middle East. Similarly, the motivation for leisure is going to be the missing more than simply the going to actually have some downtime and to relax somewhere. People might choose to meet up somewhere that they've all wanted to go to, but the heart is going to define where the holiday is, no question.
And Adel, if I could come to you on that, do you have visibility on the total journey of your passengers? For example, I'd be very curious to know what kind of hotels are they requesting? Where is they staying? And I'm sure Ross will have some comment on that as well. But maybe Adel, I could ask you to comment, please.
We are talking about like Dubai station, which is like now the most active station we have in our network. Because of all the arrangements from the government here. So we see the people mainly staying on the beach hotel, such as Four Seasons Jumeirah, Mandarin Oriental, and Nassim Hotel. Is the major destination for in addition to one and only as well, is the major destination for the people who's coming. Again, just like I want to make a comment on Anita presentation, which I think is a very benefit one. IATA announced that the commercial airlines losing $300,000 each single minute. $300,000 is a big number, each single minute. And in private aviation, we had gross on, I'm talking about third quarter of this year, I had the gross 100% comparing of like the third quarter of 2019. And this is an indication about how the people shifting, how the commercial airlines losing every minute $300,000, while we in the business aviation having 100% growth in the business. And again, I'm very confident that these people will continue flying in a business aviation and the private jet. To come back to Gerard's question about the people, like I see 90% of my customers who are coming to Dubai now coming for leisure and holiday. They are not coming for a business. This is because I see people coming family, group, and just like they are coming very relaxed. It's not about business meeting, no. I see them mainly more than 90% coming on for leisure and holiday. And because you know now the weather in Dubai is perfect, and the hotels start coming back, and which is like hopefully all the hotel will be back first quarter of next year. And I'm very positive about next year, especially in UAE, and when the expo will come. And as you mentioned, the expo will be the point when we believe the life will come back, not only to UAE, but to the world as well.
I agree.
because international event.
Yeah, no, actually, thank you very much, Adel. And, you know, it will be very interesting. The phenomenon that occurred, for example, during last summer, and indeed over the last 9 months, not only in the UAE, not only in the Gulf, Saudi Arabia is a big example of it, but the phenomenon of staycations. And we know, Ross, from our association with Ras Al Khaimah, that you know that Emirates did so well from people within the Emirates discovering their own country, and we're seeing this now around the world. Would any of you like to comment on that? Have you any insights that could help us there, Anita?
If I can jump in, please. I think this staycation element is really important from the point of view of governments around the world being very smart, quite honestly, in encouraging domestic travel first, because it's the best way to get the supply chains mobilized. In addition to getting people confident to go outside and engage, because we've been psychologically trained to avoid one another, whether it's 2 meters or completely. By domestic travel, it's getting people to slowly get back out, but also remobilize local supply chains. So very smart. One thing I want to point on, though, in terms of staycations as well, which also links to business travel, my greatest fear about the momentum of growth, especially business travel, is the optics. Because when you've got companies around the world that have had to furlough people, let go of people, cut salaries, spending the money, having the budget to spend the money on business travel, but also optically being seen to send out people around the world to travel on what used to be a perk. Now, when you've got people having been laid off, the company's image could suffer badly from the point of being seen to be negligent almost in terms of their spend. So I'm very fearful of that. And that's why I like what Adele was saying, that the growth is there, but it's actually more on the leisure side than necessarily corporate, because that's where people can justify the desire to go away and spend time together.
Sorry, Anita, but Ross, do you see, say, for example, the MICE business, the conference business, do you see any demand growing in that side, which I think might address Anita's point of, well, I don't have to feel guilty about a one-off business travel because I'm going to a very important conference and I'll be networking and meeting new people for the first time. And you know, we all know this is how business is done. And personally, I'm confident that that will return, but I think it'll take a lot more work than, as Adele rightly says, for the leisure side. Ross, would you like to comment?
Yeah, look, I think maybe 10% of business trips could maybe be classified as perks for employees, but probably 9 out of 10 are part of the grind of modern business life in a globalized world. And
yes,
they can have their moments, but you're dealing with jet.
I think Ross, have we got you back?
Can you hear me, Gerald?
Yes, my interruption blew you out. Sorry about that. Apologies.
So I take the point, Anita, about people needing to be careful and respectful with how they're spending corporate resources after layoffs, but I'm not sure most people would characterize business travel as too much of a perk. I mean, it's also the way you generate new business to sustain the people that are currently on the payroll. I'd like to think most people are traveling for that purpose. But to your earlier point, Gerald, so we've seen a lot of we have seen a lot of people booking staycations. That's kind of out of necessity, when the borders are closed. We have seen our vacation rental partners taking share from our hotel partners. So the likes of Airbnb and HomeAway, Vrbo, and Booking.com's doing good business on that front. When people are booking the big hotel, when they're booking hotels, they tend to gravitate to the bigger guys, the bigger brands. I think there's probably a trust factor there. On the flight side, we've seen a big increase in one-way trips, which I think is sort of a reflection of people just being, stranded and needing to relocate themselves. So that's probably not something I expect to see sustained in the numbers.
Ross, towards the year end, like coming up now to the Christmas period, and where travel becomes very much a need again. We see if people, even from the United Arab Emirates, people from my country, from Ireland, are upset because the Irish government is saying, "Don't come to Ireland. It's you might spread the pandemic," but you know it's the virus. But people will go anyway. Do you see any kind of trend, this trending upwards now coming into the holiday season?
Yeah, I mean, most of the bookings that we're seeing at the moment are for that period between sort of middle of December and middle of January. But interestingly, we're also seeing a whole bunch of much further out bookings for next summer. So people just taking a punt. The book now, assume that everything's going to be back under control and locking in good deals now. So if you haven't done that already, I would encourage you to do it. Sort of like speculative bookings for summer holidays. But yeah, that's all sort of on the leisure or visiting friends and relatives. I wouldn't characterize any of that as business or corporate.
Well, I would go back to, thanks, Ross, to Anita's point. That lovely controversial point there that it's a perk to go business traveling. You know what? There's nothing wrong with enjoying your work. So if I got to go to Shanghai to meet a customer, why not? And I do genuinely believe that, Ross mentioned it earlier, this one-to-one, it's so important, face-to-face meetings, and face-to-face meetings will come back. But obviously as well, what we're doing now with our virtual calls, our Zoom calls, Skype calls, they're here to stay as well. And I'm sure that the first reaction to a business lead will be to go on a Zoom call as opposed to necessarily hop on a plane and fly to the destination. But we're coming close to the end of our session. And what I'd like to ask is each of you to give us your take. What's going to happen? What's it going to look like afterwards? How is it going to be in terms, particularly trying to relate it to the corporate and the business travel? And this time we'll start with you, Adel, please.
First of all, I'm very optimistic and positive that everything will back to the, I will not say back to the normal as Anita mentioned, because nothing will back to the normal, because the people will have a new habit and the new culture of the travel and everything. So I'm very optimistic by first quarter of next year, we'll see the business growing again. Hopefully the commercial airlines can be in a position to recover soon. And hopefully the vaccine will be, I will not say that will be the immediate solution, but that will be the start of the solution of this pandemic, which affect everyone in the world and every single business industry. I'm talking about my industry, the business aviation. It will be grow, and I see a big demand for the coming 3 to 5 years in the business aviation. And again, I'm sure who travel in business aviation during this pandemic will continue flying in this one, because if the business aviation was before accessory, now became necessary. So I want to wish everyone to be safe and healthy, and I want to thank everyone, and we want all of us to be positive and look forward for 2021 as a new start for the business and for the good life. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Adel. Thank you for those great insights. And Anita, if I may ask you also, while you're wrapping up for us, can you also just mention about the UNWTO and your regional office in Saudi Arabia?
I can do with great pride, and thank you for mentioning that. I think linking it all together, I'm innately optimistic. Our world needs travel, and our world of travelers needs to be able to run around the world and create opportunities, create unity, create understanding. We have just started the development of our regional office in Riyadh. It's going to serve 13 countries of the region itself. It's opening in January of 2021, and it's a sign of the absolute commitment in the Middle East of the development of global tourism through the Middle East. The Kingdom is exactly the right place for us to have our regional office, and all that it is doing with Vision 2030, especially putting tourism development at the heart of development of the Kingdom and its relationship with both the region and the world, is magnificent. So everything that's happening there is brilliant. What is my view? Short term, I think there is, exactly as we know, enormous pent-up demand and a desire to get back out. We saw that when Pfizer announced a week and a half ago the determination of a vaccine that had a 90% success rate. Instantly, the Dow Jones jumped. And you could see the hunger, whether it was the airlines, the cruise sector, all of their values rising. Same thing happened yesterday with Moderna and the hope for that. So I think with the rapid testing taking place and the vaccine, the next normal will bring in new protocols. People will adjust. And once the vaccine gets rolled out, that will take us to the next normal. Our world needs to travel. We have seen that the severe impact negatively at an economic, social, and cultural level when our world's been grounded. Mother Nature knew what she was doing when she sent us all back to our rooms to see what we've been doing wrong. We knew the sector was growing. We thought we were too busy to course correct around sustainability, domestic travel, community inclusivity.
You're bringing us into a whole other.
Exactly. But it's a good thing.
Right.
Good has to come from this. A lot of people have suffered, a lot of lives and livelihoods have been lost, but now's the chance for the world to recognize we all have to win or we all lose. So I am optimistic. Aviation will be the ultimate mobilizer. And it's fantastic. You've got people like Adele and Ross in place showing those signs of hope that momentum will come back. We need to earn the momentum.
I'm sure. Thank you so much, Anita. Fantastic. So Ross, can we hear from you, please?
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything Anita just said. I would add, though, that I think there's a big economic hangover to come from COVID. Like once we figure out how to vaccinate everybody and to travel safely again, the economies of the world are still going to have to deal with the massive demand destruction that we've just been through. And there's a lot of companies in our industry that are still on very shaky ground. So airlines, hotel chains, not all of which are going to come through, and a lot of jobs that are still hanging in the balance, needing for somebody to step forward if our industry is going to make it through this intact. So while the vaccine's good news, there's still a lot of help that the industry needs, I think. And then more longer term, I think if we're looking at business and corporate travel, I think maybe a bigger risk than COVID is sort of what we've seen over the last 5-10 years with like some of the forces of deglobalization. So pretty much all of my working life, the world's been getting more and more integrated. The economies of the world, the supply chains have been getting more and more intermeshed. And it's only really over the last 5-ish or maybe a bit longer years, we've actually seen that going into reverse, largely as a result of what's been going on in the US, with the US-China relationship, and the economies on different sides of the Pacific sort of pulling themselves apart. And if we're all forced to choose to live in either a US or Chinese world, it's huge implications for the world economy and the way we do business across countries. So I think that's a trend I'm hoping to see arrested with the new U.S. Administration. But another challenge we need to navigate on the horizon.
No, great way to conclude, Ross, and thank you very much. I think on two aspects. One is let's keep our thoughts very much with the number of frontline workers who have found life so difficult, who have lost their jobs, and we look forward to the rebooting, the relaunching of travel and tourism, to regenerating these jobs for all of these people who serve us all so well around the world. I also personally believe that globalization will also be rebooted. Globalization is the right way to go, in my opinion. And I do see that travel and tourism, being a force for good in itself, will also be a major force for good in really bringing home to people the values and the benefits. We're all on one planet, we're all one together. And if nothing else the pandemic has done, it has proven to us that we're all at the mercy of things greater than ourselves. And we need to come together as people, and travel and tourism is the way to do it. So, and Anita, Ross, and Adel, you've been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really do appreciate your insights, and hope to see you all soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ross. Thank you, Ross. Thank you, Anita.
Take care, everyone.